What's up, people in the interwebs? Hope you're an amazing day. So, I just want to return back to the Pokemon stabbing event that happened a couple of weeks ago in Japan. Now, I recently made a video on this topic, but since I've made that video, some more information has come out. So, I just kind of wanted to make a second update on it and just kind of add some more thoughts and opinions of the whole event. Now, one thing I have really liked from the aftermath of it is how many people have left gifts at the Pokemon store that it happened in. So I think that's a really nice way to remember the girl who lost her life, sadly. But very nice from the community to kind of, lay flowers, lay Pokemon. So very, very nice to this girl. But some more information has come out since then because there is a lot of evidence that he was actually stalking her after the breakup because he didn't handle the breakup very well. And there had been multiple claims from her that she went to the police and stated that he is stalking her. So now it has brought up the big question that really maybe the Japanese police system let her down, because if the police were more on it and was more stricter with stalking laws and regulations, she could have been still alive today. Because that's the biggest question that's come up now. A lot of people are saying the police let her down, and if they were more strict on the situation, she probably would still be alive today. So I have my laptop here with me. I just want to give the timeline of the whole situation with them starting to dating and then the incident. So we've got in October 2024, that's when they started to begin dating. And then July 2025, that's when they broke up, and she also started to work at the Pokemon store around that time. So they were dating for October, November, December. They were dating for about 10 months. And then in December 2025, this is actually where between July and December, there's some incidents of stalking happening with him following her around. Because in December 25, she contacted the police, and then he was arrested on suspicion of stalking. And then a restraining order was issued, and he was encouraged to seek counselling and refuse, which I think there is a very important information to make, because I know in my last video I mentioned about he probably should have seen someone to talk it out, but it does seem he was told to go see counselling and he refused it, which is a very hard situation, because many, if someone wants to go see a counsellor, it is up to the person, but it's a hard situation. But at least counselling was advised at some point. Overall it's still a bad situation, but at least there was a mention of counselling, and unfortunately that just comes down to the individual. And I think it's hard. I think sometimes, especially for a man, I think a lot of men get into the mindset of I'm too manly, I don't need counselling, I don't need to talk to anyone, I can sort it out myself. But counselling is for anyone. If you are truly struggling, don't bottle it up. It's okay to talk to someone about it. There's nothing manly, nothing macho about trying to be like, no, I can work it through myself. People need to talk sometimes. That's a simple thing. Just talking to someone, getting it off your chest can really help kind of vent it out, regulate your emotions, get all your thoughts and feelings off your chest on the table. And then it just kind of helps, it puts all the pieces down. It's like a big puzzle piece. It gets all the pieces out. You can make a puzzle. You can see every view and angle, and then you can assess and go from there. So talking it out is very, very important. And I definitely think he shouldn't have refused, and he should have gone and actually seen someone to talk about it. Because I think a lot, these small steps could have probably all been avoided. And then in January, he was released from police custody. So the woman, hopefully I'm not going to butcher her name, but her name was Mo Harukawa. And she began living with her relatives for safety reasons. And the thing here is another thing as well, because it stated the police advised that she should quit her Pokemon job and also move to a different location, which is a hard thing because, it's not her fault she is getting stalked. And, for her, working in the Pokemon Center was a really big thing for her. And it's the kind of question, why should she have to give up her job, her life, over someone who is stalking her, and it's not out of her control? There's sometimes the element of, they need to sort out the man, not her. It's not her fault. She's got someone who just can't handle the breakup and this whole stalking situation that is going on. It's a hard thing. I can certainly see both sides, because also a safety reason. If he doesn't know where she is, that will probably also help. But the problem is, even if she does move, if the guy is still really obsessed with her. They will still find her regardless where you move, unless you kind of, completely like change your name, move to another country, and you're off social media. I always think if someone's desperate enough to find you, they are going to find you regardless, no matter where you go. So there should have been more steps in the police, I think, there, that they should have put more effort into him, getting him restrained from her and not stalking and following her around. And then the last time update, which is March 26th, where then the incident took place, and she sadly passed away, and he also took his own life. And even there, with him just taking his own life, you can see it was just like emotions were not regulated completely. And even though I just think, they've also stated he also took his own life in this situation as well. So I think it's definitely one of those moments of like, if I can't have her, no one can have her kind of situation. Absolutely horrible regardless. But it comes down to the biggest thing of, I think he should have got more support to get the thoughts and feelings. It's hard if he's declining it. But I think it is the big thing of the government, or not even the government. I think the real big question here is, yes, the police probably did let her down. There should have been more steps, procedures into making sure he was not following her. And the sad thing is, this is not a typical event in Japan. The stalking situation here is pretty bad. And I think especially for being a woman in Japan, it can be very hard because, don't get me wrong, Japan is pretty much safe overall. But if something happens, a lot of the time, the police and the government, they do really want to try and hide it if they can. I do think in Japan, the current police system here is not the best, especially when it comes for women getting attacked, because I don't think there is enough rules and regulations in place. I definitely think a lot of the times if they can kind of cover it up, if they don't have to do any paperwork, if they don't have to get involved, they will not do it. I've had some personal things that have happened in my life since being in Japan. Luckily, I have been fine. It's just stories from other of my friends here. And if the police don't have to do something, they won't really do it. There's many things that have happened. I would love to go into more detail, but it's not my story. But a lot of the things that have happened since I've been here to my friends, the police should have done more. I kind of think, there's some situations where I'm like, really, you're just gonna leave it there? You're not gonna add more to it? And that's kind of my big shock. I think other countries would have done a lot more steps and procedures, especially the UK. There's many situations where it's hard. I can't really go into it, but all I can just say is the police should have done more, in my opinion. And I just know in the UK, the police would have done a lot more, or they at least would have pointed in a few more different directions, I think, than what I've seen here. And it's hard because I think for women's safety, Japan is overall safe, but if there is a crime, especially for women, it is really hard to back it. It makes it really hard sometimes because they just don't want to get involved, or there's not enough evidence, or they don't really know what's the best way to handle it, or I think sometimes it's the whole, like, they don't want to make a scene, they don't want to make a big emphasis over it. They either want to keep it kind of under the radar and not make a big deal over it. They kind of just want to brush it under the rug. And I just kind of think, we have to make a big deal about it. You can't always kind of be calm and collected. If something's not right, you have to tell, you have to say. And it's a lot of the time, I think, with some of these crimes that happen in Japan, especially when a woman's getting attacked, I feel like sometimes it's a broken window theory, where because a lot of women, something happens, a good example is like groping. Groping is quite common in Japan. You have to be very careful as women. But some women don't want to make the emphasis, or they don't want to tell anyone, because it's kind of like the whole broken window theory, because they don't want to be made accused of their being seen as like a crazy person, or they're making it up, or they just don't want to kind of have that whole kind of gaslighting effect that, there's nothing, nothing really happened. Like, don't worry about it. Let's kind of brush it under the rug. And it kind of builds that cycle over where if no one's kind of stating that it's happening, no one's going to the police. There's one article I saw that was very interesting, where there's a day for a lot of high school and university students, I believe there's like a big exam in January where these kids have to make it to the test on time. And if they don't, then they miss their chance to do the test. And they said on this day, the groping increases because these kids have to make it to the test on time. So a lot of gross people will then grope these students on this day because they don't have time to kind of make a report, go to the police, or go anywhere to talk about it because they have to make it to their exam on the day, which I think is absolutely disgusting of these people. You know, this stuff like this, it really needs to be zero tolerance. And I definitely think there should be more places, rules, and regulations put in place. And I think the government and the police need to kind of make some more changes because, you know, you let one of this kind of, it's again, you let one slip like this, it's going to happen again. 100%. There will be another situation. You know, this is not the kind of first situation, a bad breakup's gone wrong, and then that one of the exes is want to try and get revenge or take the person's life or just go a bit too obsessive. It's going to happen again. I know it will. But this is where you want to learn from the past mistakes, and we want to put some new rules and regulations in place. Like, I definitely think where they're giving them the offer to go do counseling, and he's saying, no, I don't think that should be a choice. You have to maybe put like a mandate that you have to go to a couple of mandatory counseling sessions and then kind of go from there, assess the situation and see what happened there. Definitely get a restraining order in 1000%. You know, make sure you can't go near to the person they are stalking because it's not good for them. It's not safe for the person who's being stalked. It's all dangerous in all these events. So yeah, there's a couple ideas I think they could maybe do to make it a little bit safer. But yeah, I just kind of want to just talk about it a little bit more just because some new information has come out, and I'm hoping Japan, I'm hoping the police, the government, they'll look at this and see we need to make some new rules and regulations when it comes to stalking incidents. Because I think in Japan, if any country can be quite, I think stalking is scary in general, but I think if someone is stalking you in Japan, I think it can be quite a scary place and situation, especially in Japan, because the rules and regulations are a bit loosey-goosey. And I kind of think the police should be doing more when it comes to these situations. Just especially from what I've seen when my friends, hopefully, I never really want to get involved with the police since being a foreigner and living in Japan regardless, but the times I have encountered the police with some of what's happened with my friends in their lives and situations, I just think many times the police could have done more. So yeah, those are kind of my thoughts and opinions. I just want to talk about it again. If you guys, what do you guys think? Do you think there should have been more support from the police from this whole situation? Absolutely tragic event, still really horrible. You can see the country is still kind of grieving, especially people who live near those Pokemon centers, because I've heard they've stopped the shops are now open again, but a lot of the events they had planned for those stores they have cancelled for the next couple of weeks, and there's a lot more security at those Pokemon stores. I think it's nice to have the security, but I also kind of think, you know, the security is too late because the law of averages, no one's going to attack anyone in a Pokemon Center anytime soon. So yeah, it's sometimes it's that kind of like hindsight. It's a bit little too late. But yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions. You know, my thoughts and prayers goes out to the family. I hope they can grieve in peace and take their time to process it all. And yeah, it's just a horrible situation overall. But let me know your thoughts and opinions. Hopefully the government and hopefully the Japanese police will make some new rules and regulations from this event. Make sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date, where I talk about some more videos about my life and life in Japan. And I will see you next time. Bye.